Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison is generally known as a coming-of-age story. Many of the characters are forced to make life decisions at one point in their life. One known character is Pilate choosing to travel around the world in search of her people as a young girl. In Ruth choosing to get pregnant with Milkman to keep her husband. Even like Cersei choosing to hide Macon and Pilate, risking her job and her life to keep them safe.
I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind?
The protagonist, of course, makes the most known ongoing life decision, which is Macon, also known as Milkman. He is on a continuous trail of choosing whether to follow in his father's footsteps and own property or go his own way and search for his people in their history. Macon's father, Milkman's grandfather, owned land known as Lincoln's Heaven until he was tricked out of it by white people simply because he could not read. Milkman meets Reverend Cooper, who explains how Macon worked side by side with his father on their land, which Milkman begins to brag about his father and how he worked side by side with him just the same. But was he really proud of his father, or was he putting on a show like his Aunt Pilate and her Aunt Jemima act? Ever since Macon II saw his father get shot, he knew he wanted to own land just as his father had, but he did not want to be tricked out of it like his father had. Milkman and his mother had an odd relationship. From the start, she breastfed him far too long. As he would sit on her lap, he could touch the ground with his feet. We can conclude that this was a case of need of affection once we discover she went almost her whole life with Macon being unaffectionate towards her. And when her father died, she felt alone. So having breastfed Macon, she felt the affection she longed for, though she knew it was wrong. This all stopped when Fenny the janitor caught her one evening breastfeeding her son, in which Freddie gave Macon the nickname Milkman. Once Macon had discovered his son's new nickname, he was suspicious about his wife's relationship with his son. Because of her history with her father, the doctor, whom Macon also believed had a sexual relation, this caused Macon to keep Milkman away from his mom. To keep Milkman away, Macon made Milkman work with him, collecting people's rent. Macon wanted his son to learn that the best way to live is by owning things. You can never go wrong when you own things. And this was a path Macon had dreamed of for his son to follow. Milkman working with Macon was all just a plan to keep Milkman and Ruth separated when it actually turned out to be a great help to Macon, who eventually enjoyed his son working with him side by side. We can assume that it reminded him of him and his father working side by side on Lincoln's Heaven like they used to. Milkman decided he was going to leave town until he discussed it with his father over a picnic at the park. Once Milkman told his father his plan to leave, Macon discouraged it because he needed him to stay and help him work, and he needed him to take over eventually. And when Milkman disagreed, Macon told him about the gold and Pilate in the cave and their father. He explained that only logical idea on who took the gold would have been Pilate, which Macon believed she had in that green sack in her house, which she called her inheritance. Milkman confirmed Macon's theory when he said she called it her inheritance, and when he said he hit his head on it and it gave him a hickey from how hard whatever was in it was. We later find that the gold was not in the green sack when Milkman and Guitar stole it. Did Macon make up the story about the gold to keep Milkman around? Did he have that much faith in his son's upbringing that Milkman too believed owning things meant everything, and that Milkman would instantly go find the gold? So Milkman agreed to go down south in search of the gold. We see this at first his being like his father, but in the end he finds himself using the time he had down south to find out more about his people and the history in which they were a part of. Down south is where he met Reverend Cooper, who told him about Macon and Pilate and their father, where he met Susan Bird, who told him about the whole truth about Jake and Saint and the flying African children. Milkman, in the end, went the way of his Aunt Pilate and found people to be more important than things. He never did find the gold, but he did find out all he could about his people, and he couldn't wait to share his newfound information with his aunt, proving he cares more about his people